Hi, my name is Melanie. I'm here to tell my daughter Eve's story. Eve was 21 years old when she died from PE and DBT. I want to be her voice and tell her story. She was always dancing. She was the first when you had the mute radio on in the kitchen. She put her hands out to you and jumped down off the counter to dance. She was told the worst jokes but laughed the loudest, and when she was telling you a joke you'd be laughing so much at her crying from laughing at herself. She was the best sister ever. Her siblings adored her. She's the best dog mom. Her dog still misses her every day. She was just so full of life. She lived her life 90 miles an hour. Eve was no slacker. She loved every day she went into work. She just loved it. Loved shoes, loved selling shoes, loved her tattoos, loved to be different. She just lived life to the full, and as she'd say, I'm living my best life, ma'am. Yeah. Eve actually had been in Offaly the night before. She was there for her partners. He was graduating from Barber College, so the following day we had met her. We're waiting to meet her at the bridge in Limerick. It's by Matthew Bridge, and as she was approaching our car, she fell. And at first I remember kind of going, oh my God, she's going to be mortified, but she didn't get up. And her dad and I went over and picked her up, and she was crying, which was very unlike her, and she said, I can't stand on my leg. I remember there was people across the road and they shouted over, will we ring an ambulance? And we said, no, look, she's fine. But she was soaked, so we brought her home. I helped her change her clothes, and we brought her out to the hospital. We arrived there about 10 to 10 that evening, and she was with her partner, Mark, so she had said to me, ma'am, you can go home, I'll be okay. So all night we were texting, and she seemed okay until 5 that morning, when she'd said the back of her calf didn't feel right and they were worried about it, so she was going to have a CT scan later on. So I'd say I got back out to her at around 8:30 that morning. It was our younger daughter's, Emma's, birthday. Eve, that day she was transferred to a ward, and she at about 3:30 on the 20th of July, and at around 8:30 that evening she was discharged home. And she was so excited to see Emma because she hadn't seen her all day, and they were Snapchatting each other. And I remember on the way home she wanted to stop at a shop to get these particular sweets Emma liked. And we were saying to her, Eve, don't get out of the car, we'll go for you. But she did. So we got home, and everything seemed fine. She was chatting and laughing, and that evening she had said to me, ma'am, I got you a Pandora ring for your 40th birthday, I want to give it to you now. So she got Mark to go and get the ring, and she just said to me, I love you so much, thanks for everything today. And around 11:15 Eve had said, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. So I remember looking at her in the mirror, and she was bumming it up the stairs, and I asked her, do you want a hand, or will your dad help you? And she said, no, I'm fine, but it reminded me of when she was small. And I said to her, I love you, Eve, I'll see you in the morning. She said, I love you, man. And at about 11:45, I heard this piercing scream, and it was like I'd never heard such an anguished call, and it was Mark calling me. And when I got up to the first landing, he had said to me, I think she's having a panic attack. When I turned her beautiful little face towards mine, I could see her lips were blue and her skin was mottled. And she just kept saying she couldn't breathe. And I remember Barry came up the stairs, and we just looked at each other, and he knew when I shook my head he went back down to ring an ambulance. And Eve had her first cardiac arrest then, and Barry was on the phone and we'd switched places. I took the phone and I remember he thumped her chest and he was leaning down, pumping, telling her, come on, and she sat forward. And I remember thinking, thank God she's all right. And the ambulance crew started coming in, but 3 crews came, and she was acting really out of character. She was kind of shouting, where she was such a gentle creature, like she wouldn't normally ever shout. And she had an oxygen mask on her mouth, and I remember the ambulance man saying to me, come here a minute, she's calling you. And I knelt down and I was rubbing her face, and she said, Ma'am, I'm so sorry. And she looked at me and she said, no, listen, I'm so sorry. She had a second heart attack. She never came back. And she died at 1:50 a.m. on the 21st of July. And Eve was one of our worlds. She was amazing. She was beautiful. She was kind. She was everything. So I'm here telling Eve's story because Eve had risk factors. The first one was that she was on the pill. Her second was I had a DVT that travelled to my lung, and her third risk factor was that she was at the emergency room with a lower limb injury. And I think if Eve had been risk assessed for a blood clot, I think maybe she'd be telling her own story today, her survival story. Just like I survived, she could have too.
Spot the signs, save a life.